I could just ask everyone to just mute unless they're speaking. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Commonwealth Games Culture and Physical Activity Overview and Scrutiny Committee. This is an informal meeting, so I'll just go straight into the agenda to say that the meeting will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast by the Council's YouTube site, and where there's any members of the press and public may record and take photographs, except where there's any confidential or exempt items. And then apologies, item 2, I've received apologies from Councillor Storer and Councillor Jan, and also Rob James. I don't know if I've got any other apologies. I don't think we have. No, okay, that's fine, thank you. In that case, we can move on to the declarations of interest if anyone's got any. If none, then I can move on to item 4, which is a presentation on the Commonwealth Games street scene, and we do have Darren Share in attendance to present to us the plans in getting prepared or getting the city prepared for the Commonwealth Games in relation to street scene. Darren, are you okay to go straight in? And I'll just ask members if you've got any questions, just indicate by raising your hands, and at the end of Darren's presentation we'll take the questions.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to try and attempt to share my screen here. So let's hold on because this might go wrong. Right. Is that working?
Yes, we can see that.
Brilliant. Okay. So I'm here to talk to you about the response that that Street Scene are putting in to get the city ready for the Commonwealth Games, and not just for the Commonwealth Games. There has been a massive investment over the last 12 months to try to tackle some of the issues on that we see on our streets. So just to give you a bit of an overview, the scope that we are looking at today in this presentation is street cleansing. So it's about street sweeping, about graffiti removal, about fly tipping, road verges, litter picking. In the waste management side, it's about recycling and making sure our collections are working well, looking at medical waste and event waste. And then on the park side, tied in street tree trimming, flower beds, shrub end maintenance, any floral enhancements, which I'll come on to, and about grass cutting through the games. So this is just an example of what some of the issues that we've got at the moment. So the early morning litter after nights out in the city centre specifically, but this is replicated across many high streets in the city. Fly tipping numbers have been increasing over the last 2 years. And that's why we've put a number of interventions in at the moment to tackle fly tipping specifically. And this, what I'm going to be talking to you today, will be phase 2 of those interventions to get the city right. We've also seen an increase in graffiti and specifically tagging more than street art across the city, which we intend to tackle. And then it's looking at these pieces of land that are not owned by the city, or some of them are owned by the city, or they're in between areas. So we're looking at tackling all of those as part of the investment into clearing our streets. So some of the principles that we are looking to undertake deep cleansing across the whole city between now and July for the start of the games. For the games period, we are looking to have a dedicated street scene offer with a manager. So we'll have a person coordinating all activities along the games routes. The workforce will be supported by agency, so we've got a number of new processes that we're putting in. Mobile HRCs for one, deep cleansing crews, extra fly tipping crews. They will be a mixture of our frontline workforce and agency workers undertaking that, and we're looking to increase that number by 95 over the next few weeks. That our vehicles that we will be using will be liveried with the city logo on, so everybody can see it's the city undertaking these work. The floral features we've got planned, and I'll come on to those later in the presentation, will be installed in June next year. That is to enable the frosts to get away, and that we normally bring out of our hanging baskets and flower towers in June. And then during the games period itself, we want to increase our grounds maintenance, because we are currently on a 3-weekly cycle for grass cutting, and we're looking to increase that to weekly along some of the key routes through the city and some of our venues. And street cleansing will also increase to daily during the games, and that's all planned for as we go into it. I'll explain that later. Some of the principles are that we are going to start carrying out enforcement on private land. We've started to identify areas of land that have got waste on them. That work is the enforcement is going to start January. We have to give the owner of the land chance to clear it up before we spend council resources to go in and collect the waste, and then we'll look to recharge that back onto the owner. We will be developing our Love Your Streets campaign that we've identified 37 high streets that we'll be working with, and Love Your Streets campaigns will be targeting those main routes. Again, from January, we've got a plan of those and where they're going to be. We will coordinate our summer bedding across the whole city to try and use the same colour scheme, so the whole city looks as if we are as one for the Commonwealth Games, which will be the first time we've done that, so it will be a common scheme across the whole city. And we're also looking for locations where we can sow wildflower meadows and places on the highway that we can do that. So if we go into the detail, now these slides are looking at how we are deploying additional crews, and these are on top of the additional fly tipping crews, mobile HRCs, deep cleansing crews that we've got in operation at the moment to tackle fly tipping across the city. So Montague Street Depot, which covers the city centre, is going to have additional crews operating throughout from now until August. At the moment, they've got a wider area. As soon as the games come into effect in the end of July, those 2 crews will be dedicated specifically in the morning to cover up anything that's any litter that's displaced over the evening. We're also having 2 extra crews, again starting now covering a wider area across the Montague Street area, but as we go into the games period itself in end of July, those 2 crews will then focus specifically on the nighttime activity in the city centre. I said earlier that we've got an issue with graffiti on the increase, so we've got an additional 5 crews. We've got 3 at the moment, an extra 2 that will come in the early new year. They will be out clearing graffiti across the city and tackling anything we can get. And again, both private and council buildings will be tackled. We are looking at bringing into additional scrubbing machines that they will be focused on the city centre predominantly, and they will be able to give that extra polish onto the areas around some of the main squares in the city centre. And of course, I mentioned that we will have the events team leader that will coordinate all these activities. We are going to focus some of the activity on the main roads, the main arterial roads, the A34, the A45, the A38 and the A456. All these roads coming into the city centre. During the games, they will have daily inspections. Up until the games, we will have crews regularly going down those roads, picking up rubbish and fly tipping and sweeping those roads. But they will also be covering a wider area until we get into the actual games period itself. We've got 3 extra crews based, one at Lifford, one at Redford and one at Perry Bar, that will be tackling fly tipping. They will have a larger vehicle, so they'll have a compactor vehicle, and they will be able to go around and deal with any waste that is thrown onto the streets. Not just in the games routes, but this is the wider area, because we see we need to clean the whole city, not just the games routes specifically. During the games itself, those 3 rapid response crews will be dedicated to the main venues that we have around. Lifford will be Edgbaston and the University, and at Redford it will be the main roads, and at Perry Bar it will be the Alexander Stadium. Next slide. So this is again showing the evening crews that will come on again, especially through the games period, that we will be putting on additional staff working the evening crews, because the events don't finish till 10 o'clock at night. So we will have crews working in the late afternoon, early evening, clearing up around the venues as people go in and out of those spaces. And we've got evening crews for the north of the city. So the previous slide was around Edgbaston and the University. This evening crew is around Alexander Stadium and the arena. So we've got 3 additional crews. We've got 2 sweepers, and then we've identified again in the evening 4 additional crews that will be out clearing any waste that happens that happens between the day crews and the evening crews, and they will be crewed up to be able to deal with any waste that they come across. That's a total of 95 additional staff that will be starting this month, going right the way through to the games, and that's on top of the previous interventions that we've got, such as the mobile HRCs that are out there at the moment and operating. Alongside that, we'll be working very closely with our volunteers. So Birmingham Open Spaces Forum have been fantastic in generating a load of support, clearing their local parks. So we will continue to support those with equipment and removal of litter. We are pushing the Love Your Streets teams. So any groups that are coming forward, we're providing litter, equipment, and clearing up the waste that they produce. And we aim to do more of that over the next year. We've also developed a link with the Botanical Gardens. They are looking at developing a Commonwealth eating project, and they want to get involved in coming out, not just in the gardens, but out of the gardens, and taking over some sites where we can have a display about growing and eating healthily throughout the games. So we're working with them on that. We're working on the legacy. So this is about getting the infrastructure right. especially around Perry Park. So we're going to be looking at when the games infrastructure is removed, how the park will look and make sure the park is enhanced. Sutton Park is a major site for the triathlon. So we're looking at having a legacy of event space, so that if in the future, with electricity points for any community group or any group that we can get to take up activities in the park, they will have the benefit of electricity in there. And the FBA is the Future Parks Accelerator, so they've been identified. 150,000 has been identified for community involvement in parks going forward, and that's to support the building up of the alliance and groups of third sector or voluntary organisations all working together for the benefit of the environment across the whole of the city. So that takes us on to the floral enhancement side. So this is once we've got the city, and I'm talking about the whole city clean, then we'll be able to build on that with bringing out some floral enhancements. So at the moment we've identified 200 hanging baskets that will be predominantly around the city centre. There will be 700 barrier planters. They sit on infrastructure on the highways, and they will be on the main routes into the city. And then I think one of the exciting project is 310 flower towers, and they will be identified all across the city, and they will be in local areas, local high streets, and they'll be celebrating the whole of the Commonwealth Games, and I'll come on to where they will go in a minute. The colour scheme is being looked at, so we've got the brand colours that have been identified, and the aim will be on here. So the areas around the city, in the city centre, will be multi coloured floral towers, but the areas driving in will be of single colour based on the colour palette. And these blue lines are the roads where we're intending to put the floral towers. So you can see that it's quite a network of where the floral towers will be, and they will cover every main high street in the city. On top of that, we've got some floral enhancement planned on some of the main traffic islands, and those are the red dots. And we're going to have a walking route through the city centre. So on the city centre, this is where the floral enhancement will be. These are where the main hanging baskets are going to be, and some of the barrier liners coming into the city centre. And we will have a walking route with floral displays going from the arena to Smithfields, so people will know that they're on a Commonwealth Games route. As I said, the flower towers are the bits that are quite exciting, really, because that will be the first time that we'll be putting them down the high streets. This is a sort of an impression of what they will look like. They're 2 meters tall. They will be single colour. They will be fully planted. They will have the Commonwealth Games logo on the top of them, so you will clearly identify that they are part of it, and they will go down those roads that we've identified in the previous slide. Alongside that, we are looking at some additional features, and we've got quite a reputation for our wicker work. So our wicker work will be the main feature of our traffic islands. And on our traffic islands, we've got 10 identified, and we are picking a sport for each traffic island. The remaining 7 will be displays that will go through the walking route from the arena to Smithfields through the city centre. We're also planning to bring the shoes out and use them in an area of the city too. So these are some of the examples of what that could look like. So we've got a running man, we've got a weightlifter and a rhythmic gymnast, and we'll have 17 of these displays situated on those islands that we identified earlier in the presentation. So there's a lot going on. We've got a lot of work that has started earlier in the year, tackling fly tipping, tackling graffiti. We're starting to ramp up the numbers so we can tackle the areas around the games and across the whole of the city. We've got more plans to develop that, and more staff will be coming in over the next few weeks. We've also got some more opportunities that we are currently talking to the bids. We've had several meetings now to identify and see whether we can coordinate our floral enhancement with the bids so we can have a joined up approach. We are going to, in the new year, really maximise the volunteering offer for those who want to get involved in clearing up streets and areas in the local area across the whole city. And we are looking at showing how parks could be delivery centres for grassroots sports going forward and host green activities. So there's a lot going on, a lot more to happen over the next few weeks. We've carried out quite a lot. The actions and the interventions that we've got in at the moment has taken, on average, we've been bringing in additional 480 tons of waste off the street with the additional works that we've been putting in. And as we bring in more people, we hope to tackle more areas across the city to get us into a position where we can all be proud of the city. So that's the end of my presentation. When I stop sharing, I'll hopefully be able to answer any questions that anybody's got.
Thank you, Darren, for your presentation. I'm just going to pause to see if I've got any indication from members, if you've got any questions or comments on what Darren has presented to us. Okay, I'll take Councillor Straker-Wells.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Darren. I don't know how you feel. I felt quite tired after all of that. It's a live report, and it certainly encourages me. And it ranges really from investment, targeting of resources, maintenance, enforcement, and evaluation. Oh, by the way, the floral displays and the wicker are a delight. I actually think that'll switch me on, and I just hope it will switch the citizens on. The extra graffiti crews are a real potential plus, because the worst thing you could have is these wonderful displays and then daft graffiti all over the place. I've got 3 easy questions for you. They're all dead easy. The first one, I'm glad to hear that you're intending to work with volunteers and community people, because they do a phenomenal amount, and certainly there are half a dozen in my ward. But I wanted to ask, are you aware of all of the groups, and would you welcome additional information about them? And are they, did I read you correct, you're going to try and get them involved in Love Your Streets? The second question is probably impossible, so don't worry about answering it if it is impossible. I was going to ask, what are the most challenging issues that you're dealing with at present? Because you've got bin collection, street clearing, street cleanings, graffiti, and of course fly tipping, and inevitably there are people who are going to be absent. And then I was going to ask another question, just the third one. Will there be cooperation between the different sectors like street scene and Kia? And I say this with some feeling, because there was supposed to be last week a mobile recycling. It was Park Hill in my ward, and we leafleted in anticipation of that, only to find that somebody had closed the road at both ends. And so it didn't happen when I finally got there. And these, I gather that the new City Operations Directorate is meant to try and get more synergy and more cooperation between the different sectors, so you don't get stuff like this. Well, there you go. Sorry about that, but I'm very inspired by the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Shall I try and answer those questions? And the first one, we're aware of what we know, and I'm aware there are a lot more people out there working on the streets in our parks that are doing it by themselves. So if local elected members have any contacts, we're more than willing to make contact with them as ourselves, see what offer we can help, and whether that's an individual or whether it's a group, we want to work with them to do whatever they can, because they're putting themselves out for the good of the city. We need to support them. So happy to take groups or individuals and see what we can do to work with them, make sure they've got the right kit, know what they're doing, are safe. And more importantly, that they put the rubbish somewhere where we know where it is, so we can pick it up, because that's important. The challenging one, it's a good question, isn't it? And I think the problem we've got, and the biggest challenge that we've got, is the fly tipping issue, because that could happen overnight somewhere where we don't know about, or it just happens, and we need people to be very vigilant, identifying those and letting us know, so we can get that picked up as quickly as possible. The biggest challenge for us on fly tipping is on fly tipping on non-council land, because I think there's a whole raft of processes that we need to go to get that cleared. And we need to think about how we're going to do that during that games period, and whether we just go in and clear it. Cooperation is getting better. You're right there. It always falls over. City Ops has come together, so we are working very closely with Kia, because they have a responsibility for graffiti removal. Our additional crews that we've put on will tackle some, but we'll work with Kia, so we make sure that there's no point us both going to the same piece of graffiti. And highways are at the moment doing surveys of what they need to do. That's been shared with us, so we don't go in and clear something up. They come and then do some more work to it, and then we have to go back and clear it all up again. So we are working more closely, and we're doing the same with housing, because housing is also an area that we need to keep an eye and make sure we're coordinated on. But there are going to be some challenges ahead, and we all need to work together to make sure the city looks its best.
Thank you. Did I hear you? All right. Kia is responsible for graffiti removal.
Yes, on highways, on highway structures, but okay. This is where it's slightly bonkers, because it depends on whereabout on the structure is a mixture between ourselves and Kia. So rather than Kia do their bit and leave something that we meant to do, Kia are going to we've got a relationship. They will do it, and then we'll, on some cases, so some of the entrance points to some of the tunnels, for example, will be our responsibility to get to a point, and then Kia take over. So whoever gets there first will be undertaking the graffiti.
Okay, thank you, Darren. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Straker-Wells, for your questions, and Darren for answering them. I've got an indication from Councillor Mosquito next, so I'll take you next.
Thank you very much, Councillor Khan. The question I have is really, and I know, Darren, this is not necessarily your area of specialism, but you did talk about volunteering, about working with Kia, and is there anything where you're working with small and local businesses from the local area? Because I just wondered what we are doing to facilitate them. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, so we are right. The bit where we're trying to engage, especially around some of the high streets, we are trying to engage with the shop owners down there, because of the way bins are being presented at the moment. Some trade bins that they're not all city council trade bins. Are the way that they are kept on the high streets is something that we are looking at to see whether we can make them less obvious, but also still doing their job. And that is a joint venture with ourselves and Kia, because Kia have the authority to do certain things about where the bins are on the high street, and we also have powers that we can do something with the shop owners. But before we get to doing any sort of powers, we're trying to have those conversations. So we are looking at that. We're looking to see how, obviously, shopkeepers, if they want to get involved in maintaining or doing something on their high street or on their streets, like the Soho Road bid, classic example where they bought planters and planted up them themselves and maintain them themselves, which is fantastic. We'll do whatever we can to support or work with those organisations too.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, Darren.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to pause to see if there's any other indications from members. If not, then I will go ahead and ask some of the questions that I've got. So I'll just pause for a quick moment. Okay. In that case, if anybody does think of any questions or any comments that you may have, then just indicate and I'll bring you in afterwards. Thank you, Darren, for your presentation. It's obviously good to hear some of the positive things that we are expecting to see between now and July. From the extra additional crews to the floral features and things like that we'll be seeing, and I know that especially on key routes it will be sort of a bit more obvious that that's something extra is going on with regards to street scenes. One of the questions that I have got is a lot of the things in your presentation made specific reference to the key routes around the venues and things like that, and obviously the additional crews that you spoke of were tying in sort of directly to those areas. I just wanted to know, obviously, we're hoping to have the best games ever in our city, and we really want to make use of this opportunity and ensure that no community and no area is left behind. So with that in mind, I'd just like to know, what sort of plans do you have in terms of the non-directly related to the venue sites, the other areas across the city? How will they benefit from this additional sort of programme that we've got in sort of clearing up the areas? Because I know that we've got issues probably in every single ward, but just a bit more specific about the other sort of areas that are not related to sort of the key routes, the main road, or in and around the main venues.
Yeah, that's a good point, and the key thing is that all of the work that we're doing, until we get into the games time itself, will be on that wider area. There's no way we are just going to concentrate on just the games routes and the games areas, because who knows what route a spectator is going to take to get to that venue. We don't want them stepping one road in and going, oh, this is a complete mess. So the aim is that the teams that we've got will be dedicated covering the whole city. So the mobile HRCs, for example, are visiting every single ward that we've got on a regular basis. We've got additional deep cleansing crews that are tackling deep cleansing routes anywhere in the city, not just on the games route. The 95 that we're just about to take on, which is on top of those interventions that we've already got, will be tasked to the wider area. So they will be covering the people that are in Redfern, will be covering the whole of the Redfern's depots area, and the same with Perry Bar. And they will only focus then on the routes going into the games and the games venues itself during the games period, the week before and the games period. Up until then, they will be tackling the wider area. We can't have everything just focused on the games, because that's not what we want to do as a city. The aim of the Flower Towers going down the high streets in those locations on that map that I put up was to try to get as many of the high streets and as many communities involved in the games as we physically can. So that and there's no point putting Flower Towers and additional niceties onto a dirty street. So all activities will be to clear up those areas, work with communities across the whole city, and not just have a very targeted response. Yes, we will go targeted during the games itself, because that's where more people will be. But up until then, we are absolutely tasked with cleaning up the whole city.
Okay, well, that's really reassuring. I think it was just important to hear from yourself that the resources are going to be spread across the city, and then obviously a bit more during games time around the venue. So thank you for that. I've got a few other sort of points and questions. I think you obviously we spoke about the mobile household recycling centres, and that's citywide, and I think so far they've probably been multiple times to every ward by now. In my ward, specifically in Allen Rock, they started off by being a massive, great hit. You know, we had 30 tonnes collected in the first ever visit, I think 29 in the second one, and a lot of that was done because I think we worked really actively. Myself and my ward colleague, we worked in making sure that the comms around that was sort of widely spread. We did like a video, social media, we did letters. You know, on the second visit, I think we did 18 roads we covered, and obviously that it just meant that everybody now knows that there's mobile household recycling centres and this is a brilliant service. So I think it worked really well. I know that hasn't been the sort of experience across the city in terms of sort of glitches and issues that have happened in particular wards, with them either turning up late or not being able to have access, like Councillor Straker-Wells mentioned, due to a sort of a road being blocked. And I think now, I mean, for Allen Rock, my experience is that now we've been able to get an increased sort of number of visits. But I'd say now that, because I don't know whether it's due to it being closer to sort of December period and it's colder, I think that it needs to possibly be relooked at, and maybe not have such a sort of busy such a regular service. So I've had residents, for example, say that in Allen Rock now we've had it every single week. So we've because of how busy it was initially, and because of the issues around fly tipping, we've been lucky enough, for example, last month we've had it 4 times in last month, but we've also had missed collections. So I've had residents come back and say, this is great that you're telling us that we've got another MHRC, but I would appreciate if my weekly bins were picked up, and maybe that should be prioritised. And so I think that although they're brilliant, I'm not saying take any resources away from Allen Rock. I'm just saying that even if it was to not be a weekly service, where for now the majority. So I know we had a visit this week where it wasn't as busy as it initially did start off, and I just think that 5 hours for them to be there, maybe, I don't know whether it would, that, you know, maybe the time could be used better, where if they, you know, if people weren't turning up, if that 5 hours they were able to just go and pick up the extra fly tipping that's around the roads that they're just parked on, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I just think that, yes, it's brilliant, but maybe once a month might work well across the city if they were to visit, and then in particular areas twice a month, of slightly reduced service, and just sort of balance it out so that it doesn't just get wasted, that the resources are, you know, it's an ongoing thing. Obviously it's something that we're looking to see whether it worked well. It's just, I think that there's a variety of sort of feedback that we're having, and obviously we need to listen to residents and we need to see how well they're being used. One, people love them, but for us in particular, I think that maybe they're not needed for, you know, every single week. Maybe the priority should be on the extra fly tipping that still does happen, or for example the red carded properties, where we've got sort of bags because people are not able to have bins. Maybe I understand that there's different teams and different crews, but I just think that either way, I think it maybe needs to be sort of monitored and looked at. And another point in relation to the mobile household recycling centres is that I think they work better when the staff speak to the councillors and decide the locations collectively. The last few that we've had have been quieter because we've just been told that we're going to be coming on such and such road, and that hasn't really worked because there may be roads that residents, we know it won't be used as busily because it's a sort of a road hidden behind a few roads and it's out of the way, whereas the initial ones that we did were on main roads and a big car park. Everybody knows exactly what the location is and they were really sort of busily used. So I would just say that we need to ensure that the decision on where they go and maybe when as well needs to be decided closer with elected members, because we've now, for example, I initially said I wanted to have them on different days of the week so that people don't just think that it's something that we're getting regularly, because once we don't have them, then people will say you've taken away a service. But I think the last few I've had have all been on a Monday. So I think we've had about 4, 5, 6 Mondays or something in the past sort of few weeks. Anyway, so I mean, you could probably come back and tell me what the sort of what's happening in terms of monitoring the MHRCs across the city and seeing, what sort of feedback it is in other parts.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, the mobile HRCs he's a brand new scheme. It's attracted interest from around the UK to see this because it's not a service that's been used. We thought about it to try and tackle hotspots where we know there are high levels of fly tip. So there is a different number of visits per ward depending on where the fly tipping hotspots are. We have noticed a reduction in fly tipping across the city, but it coincides with a natural drop in fly tipping across the city. So we won't know until early new year, where it traditionally starts to rise again, whether it's because of the mobile HRCs and the other things that we're doing, or it's just a natural phase, although there is a sharper reduction in fly tipping this year compared to previous years. Timing is a classic example, and you are absolutely right that the officers that are picking the locations because we're seeing it as a hotspot on our map of fly tipping areas. So if it's not the right place, then we are heavily reliant on the local elected member to turn around and go, don't go there, try and go somewhere else. And we are open to suggestions of where that will be. We are mindful that we've got to get 2 large vehicles and safely cope with residents coming to them on that street, or ideally, I mean, I know the car park at the mosque worked absolutely brilliantly and there was cars coming in and doing all sorts of things. So ideally, if we could get somewhere like that, would be fantastic. But we are very much open to learning from this. This is really our 3rd month operating them. We're learning all the time and refining it. And we've got some ideas that next year we might be doing some things slightly different with some different vehicles, so we can get into smaller spaces, because 2 large collection vehicles does take up quite a lot of space, but whereas we might be able to reduce the recycling one and increase the non-residual one. So we are learning. Happy to take any sort of advice on frequencies and locations from elected members. It's a service that we want to continue. We don't, and we're equally as I'm nervous what you just said about we're there every Monday, because I don't want it to become a regular Monday at this point, because that might become a regular tipping point because they think we're coming, so let's put the rubbish there anyway, and we'll end up with like Palace Road, Imperial Road, and all those roads where people are putting bags because they know we'll come and collect them. So it is a project that we're learning, and we will take on board all the feedback and keep revising the system. We're also trying to give you as much notice as possible. So our aim is to give elected members 3 weeks notice of location, so you can get out there and help promote the service. But also, if we need to have an interaction to turn around and say, why are you coming there? Don't come there, come here. We can change that as well. So we will get better, but we will take on board all the feedback that you've just presented and come up with new ideas.
Thank you. I think that, I mean, it's like you said, it's working for us. That's the third month, and obviously there's a lot of learning to be done around that. And maybe after Christmas we may see a different sort of trend, and we'll pick up different sort of data around how often, where exactly, and things like that. I will say, however, though, it's not as easy to change a location as it may seem, because we've had them in my ward just presented to us, and when we've gone back and said, can we change the location or can we change the day, officers have come back and said to us that this has been booked now and we're not able to change things. So it's not been as easily sort of presented, and we found that it has been a little bit of a struggle. So this, for example, this week's one, we just let it happen. And I didn't get back to see. I didn't ask how much tons was collected, but I know that Councillor Idris did go and visit, and he said it was very quiet. That there were, there didn't seem like it was being sort of used, and he was there for a while just to monitor it. But I think that I would really stress that when elected members say, "Can we do this instead?" Please get the officers to try to accommodate as best, and not just see it as a, well, we've booked it now, let's just continue to do it, and just give an excuse as to we can't change things around, because the whole point is to make it effective. There's no point just doing it for the sake of it being in a timetable to say, oh, we went to Small Heath this week, we've done that. We need to be able to be effective. So that's just a little bit of feedback around that. Another thing, Darren, you mentioned as a response to Councillor Mosquito's question about businesses, the trade bins on the highways, you picked that, you commented on that yourself. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you think might be happening, or what we're looking to try to do? Because I do, and also obviously I understand the difficulties around it, where we need to ensure that they've got sufficient space to put the bins. But I just think that with the games approaching, there are quite a few sort of busy high street areas across the city where businesses block the highway and sort of irresponsibly leave their bins outside when they do have the space behind their properties. Some of them have got space, but they choose not to take the bin around and literally leave it there 7 days a week in order for their own convenience. So in terms of ensuring that, especially where they are able to move the bins to the back, what are we doing as a council to stop them from blocking the highway? Because at times pavements are not wide enough at all for anyone to walk around, and we end up getting moms with pushchairs and prams having to go into the road to then just walk around a bin. And usually it's not just the bin by then. Usually there's a lot of fly tipping attracted to the bin as well, and then it just becomes a complete eyesore. So I think that we definitely need to consider doing something about these. And obviously if it was in the city centre, I think, or if it was closer to the venues, maybe, I mean, I'd say that maybe we'd probably look a little bit closer to it. But I think that because this is an issue that will exist anyway post games, I really think that we should focus on it across the city, including some of our inner city areas that this is definitely a problem for. And if this means proactive work with planning and other departments so that it's looked into before they get licenses and planning permission, then that needs to be done. That joint up working needs to be done. But in terms of what we're doing at the moment for the games in relation to this issue, would you be able to respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely. You are right. This is it's a bugbear for many people to go down a high street that is busy and vibrant, and then seeing, if we're being brutally honest, not very nice looking green, red, orange, grey bins that are once they might be overfull, and then you have bin bags at the side of it as well. There's a couple of things. There's regulations that puts the onus on the business to store their bins appropriately and safely, and then present them on day of collection and then take them back. And we are looking to do some work with Kia to do that, because you're quite right, they've got some powers on the high street to keep the pavements clear, and we've got authority under the waste enforcement license as well. So we are looking to do some work at that. And you're right, again, if we could tackle it and solve this problem, this is a benefit of the games, putting some additional resources into it, but ultimately it will look much better for the city post games as well. So it is something we need to do. And also you're very right to identify the need to get other agencies such as planning involved, because the environment bill that was passed a few weeks ago, we've just started to get the detail of that and working through, and as part of that they're identifying and putting an emphasis on trade customers to recycle. Now, if that's act now, and that's coming to law, and there is a period of time for people to come across to get themselves set up, but that does mean instead of one container of rubbish, the owner, the trader, will be responsible for taking out and separating recyclers, and that means that for one bin you've got at the moment, there might be two on the street. So to get planning involved when they're drafting licenses to make sure that there is adequate space for waste storage will be absolutely critical going forward as the new bill comes into enactment.
Okay, thank you for that. The other question I had was around getting to the point where all of our depots have got a proactive approach as opposed to a reactive approach when it comes to clearing up the rubbish that the fly tipping that we've got on our streets. Because I know that one particular depot at the moment I'm aware of that for some reason or other, whether it's sort of staffing and management decisions or however it works, has for I don't know how many years has been working as more of a reactive approach, whereby they literally rely on people, whether it's elected members or residents or whoever, to report in where there's particular fly tipping, and then literally send out the staff with a list of, this is a fly tipping you need to clear. And then the crews that are out there picking up that fly tipping will pick up a particular location, drive down a road, see about 3 other bits of fly tipping, and then drive into another ward completely because the next one on their list is in another ward completely. So the amount of time that is being taken to drive from one site to another, completely ignoring the rest of the fly tipping, which eventually somebody has to come back and collect, because it's not going to disappear. It will be and it will be somebody from that depot who's going to have to come out on a different day. So it's not like it's somebody else's problem later on. It's still, it's the workload will still have to come under the same staff. So it baffles me that this is the way it's been working so far, and I just think that we're at the stage now that it's sort of being brought to my attention and people's attention that this is the approach that's being taken. I really think that action needs to be taken right now to ensure that across the city, in any of the depots, that we're not relying on let's go out there and just deal with the list that we've been given. Literally, if you've been allocated a particular ward, whether it means breaking down that ward into different sort of road groups, anywhere that you've got, if you're on if your duties on the day are to pick up fly tipping, you literally go and pick up all of those on that particular road group and bring it all back, as opposed to driving in other parts of the city, just following a list. I can't believe we're having to say this. It shouldn't be happening, but it has been happening. But would you be able to just sort of comment and respond back to what you have to say about that?
I share your frustration. I totally agree. It's one depot is operating differently to the other depots. So we have asked one of the managers from the other depots to step in to support the depot in question to change its practices to go like the rest of the other depots. So that's rather than clean by a list, and that's clean by an area. So We are now started to have those conversations with the crews. The crews are being redirected. They will be ward based. They will then stay in that ward. They will still pick up all the stuff that's on their list, but they'll do it because they're in the road. And if they're not on the list, then they'll pick that up as well. So we are moving away from paint by numbers or clean by numbers to ward based proper street cleansing. And you should start to see the benefits of that and the change in that program over the next 2 weeks.
Okay, well, that's useful to know. Thank you for that. You mentioned in your presentation around the eating project. It sounds brilliant. It's good to know that obviously sort of other projects are coming on the back of us having the games. And just wanted to ask, what involvement will the allotments around the city have with this project, especially including Walsall Road allotments?
So that was one of the keys. So the Botanics made contact with us because they wanted to do something in the gardens around growing vegetables or their national product from all the Commonwealth countries that are going to be in Birmingham in that time, and they've made contact with us to see whether we can put them into contact with the allotments because I would assume, and they're thinking the same, that there will be people from all members of the Commonwealth will be in there, so we can then use their skills and knowledge to help grow. And they want to put these displays on not just in the botanical gardens, but in gardens across all places across the city, on traffic islands or in parks. One of the connections is that we are in contact with Walsall Road allotments, is to put the two organisations together, because this is a botanical gardens situation. I've explained to them about Walsall Road. They're really keen to make contact with Walsall Road, and Walsall Road are keen to put on a display, show what they can do and what they can grow. So I think the two together is a must, really, and they can both benefit from working together. So we've made that connection, and we'll work with them to make sure that they have the support that they need. That if anything we could do as a council to help support both organisations.
Brilliant. That sounds really positive, and I'm pleased to hear that. Is there room or space for any other sort of Friends of Parks groups and things to get involved with that project, and what would be the way to feed them into that? Or even if there's any sort of schools groups where they use at the parks to do some sort of growing?
Yeah, so I haven't got a lot of information from the Botanics yet. They've recently made contacts and said this is what they want to do, but we haven't got any major detail. But yeah, this could really grow. When they first approached me, you did think, well, this is brilliant. This is exactly what we want. And if we could get healthy eating into the whole thing, it adds a whole new dimension. So straight away you could see the benefits. So I don't know how much the botanical gardens have got capacity to do as much as what the potential could be, because the potential could be massive. But it'd be great to get local schools involved. It'd be great to get Friends of Parks growing space in and using parks to grow some of the products that we then have as demonstrators around the city.
Is that something that you'd be able to obviously go to botanical
feedback? Yeah, definitely feedback into the botanical gardens, the interest that will be there.
Yeah, okay, and then we'd be able to just get that information, and even if elected members were able to get that circulated, then we could send it on and then leave it down to the different groups that we know of to make contact directly with botanical and see. Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. This is probably just a bit of a technical question. You know, when you spoke about the additional crews that will be coming from on the table that you presented, how many members of staff make up a crew?
It depends. So normally we operate around 3. So there'll be three in a crew.
Okay.
majority of some. We see some of the vehicles we have a crew cab, there might be 4, but on average we're looking at 3 people in a team.
Okay. And I just sort of made another point on your slide around Love Your Streets. You said that there were 37 high streets. What sort of locations, or where are they? Do you have that?
Yeah, we have got that list. We're working through that now just to make sure these Washwood Heath Road, Adam Rock Road, Stratford Road, Harbour High Street. There is a list of high streets that we want to tackle, and Love Your Streets will be happening now and after the games as well. So it's not that we're going to focus these on the Commonwealth Games areas. These are activities across the whole city. Okay,
no, that's fine. I'm just going to have a quick look to see if there was anything else that I had noted down as you were presenting. And in the meantime, if any elected members do have any other sort of comments or questions, then please do raise your hand. Oh yeah, sorry. The other point I was going to say is, you showed a map with the floral features and things on there. I was wondering whether you had a list available for the ones that you'd sort of the list format as opposed to just and also, is the sort of plans around them, are they finalised now, or is it still sort of in a draft kind of stage?
No, of course not. So, we put it in a map format, but I've got a list of the high streets that we want to use. Again, we're ordering the towers, and we're growing the plants ready for the towers. So we'll have the towers. Again, local information is really vital, that we put them in the right place and we make an impact. So happy to share the locations, and happy to get into discussions of the specifics for that, because you might, if there's a location in your ward, and you might turn around and go, why are you putting them all there? That's no good. What about this location? We're open to those local variants going. We can change that right the way up until they will be coming out in June. Okay. So we've got between now and June to identify
where. Finally, that's fine. If you were able to circulate that would be helpful. And I think one of the sort of the last points I had was our parks obviously are sort of a crucial element into a crucial part of our city overall, and not just our bigger parks, but also the smaller parks that we've got. Do we have plans to bring anything to them in terms of extra, whether it's displays and the nice looking things, whether it's just extra maintenance or focus on graffiti removal? Are we looking at those so that our smaller parks, so I know a lot of community groups and organisations are planning on using the smaller parks to hold sort of fun day events, whether that's through Celebrating Communities funding or whether it's other sort of games related activities closer to the time. So I'm just wondering what sort of focus we've got on our smaller local parks.
Yeah, so exactly. But there's a real potential to use the parks for a number of events during the build up to the games and during the games itself. So we're trying to coordinate that through use of parks form, so we can help communities and make sure that nobody's double booking, or that we've got activities that we know what's going on in the parks. So we're keen to do that. We are increasing our grounds maintenance schedules there, but just around the games period itself. So we will increase both the grass cutting and frequencies of visits. We are tackling graffiti and fly tipping as part of the graffiti interventions that we've got at the moment, and they won't be just on streets, they will be in the parks, because we also are recognising that parks are getting more heavily fly tipped than previously, so that will be part of that process. So we'll need that clean up. We are keen to work with any groups that are that want to work in our parks and want to get involved in those parks. And I agree with you. I think they're a resource that could be used to put on some real grassroots sports activities, mirroring the Commonwealth Games sports, or just getting people active in their areas. And we will do anything we can with the Commonwealth Games organising committee to try to get that enthusiasm to use our parks as a space.
Thank you. One of the other things that you mentioned was a dedicated street scene manager that will be specifically there to ensure that sort of pre-games and during games time, just oversee citywide pretty much all of what you've discussed, I think. When are we expected to have that person in post, and can elected members be sort of introduced to who that may be so that they know who would be the key person to? And obviously I understand they'll still have their own depot managers to make contact with, but this person is, if I'm right in understanding, will basically just be ensuring that sort of games readiness is happening.
Yeah, we're aiming to have that post early New Year, so just after Christmas. But that person will be the link person, so there will be other people involved in the game, so it won't be just down to the one person. But having somebody identifying issues, not just on the games routes but across the city, will be real help for us to get that focus and spend a bit of time working on private land and trying to find out the owners. And I think we just need a dedicated resource, and it will be, they will act as the key link in. They might not be able to do it themselves, but they will be the point of contact, and we will share the name of that and contact details of that person with all elected members. Thank you.
Is that, can I just ask, is that do you have somebody in mind already, or is that
no. We've got to go through. We'll have to. We'll get expressions of interest from.
Okay. The reason I asked that question then, Darren, was only so that it made sense for me to ask my next question. Can you ensure that whoever that may be, obviously as long as they're qualified to be able to have the job and all the rest of it, is deeply passionate about ensuring that the city is ready for the games? Because I think it's so important for that, whoever that person may be, to not just see this as, I'm just doing a job, for them to be as excited about ensuring that all the things that we've discussed really need to happen. Because I just think that somebody at the top who's going to be doing that just needs to have that genuine care and passion and excitement, and is energetic about making sure that everything is under control when we've got all eyes on us from around the world, if that makes sense. But that's why I asked you, because if we're already later down the stage, there's no point me asking you to make sure the person's passionate. So
no, it's a key point, and you're right. There's going to be a billion eyes on the city. We want somebody that is going to be all over the place and wanting to make difference. And have those connections, and we do need a very energetic and excited person to be part of that, part of the team, really. So we'll make sure that we get the right person.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Straker-Wells, you've got your hand up. I'll hand over to you.
Right, I've learnt a lot, and I hope everybody else in the council will also have a chance to learn about this. So the question really was about how you're going to make this available to everybody. In a sense, we're in a privileged position because we've had a chance to really look at this in detail. I assume that starting to drip feed elected members with a host of information which will allow them to see not only what's going to happen, but also what the output measures are that you're expecting as a result of the additional investment. Sorry, I haven't said that very well, but I think you got what I mean.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've been talking to Councillor O'Shea about doing some briefing sessions in the new year to talk about some of the pilots and the projects that we've got ongoing, like the mobile HRCs listening to views and around Love Your Streets, and how you can engage with us around the Love Your Streets, and then that links into the telling everybody what's going on with the Commonwealth Games. So we are looking at setting up some briefing sessions early New Year to let everybody know exactly what we are planning, what they can expect, and how everybody could help get involved in cleaning up their area.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you, Councillor Straker-Wells. I think that is really important because you're right, we are in a sort of privileged position where we're able to get this presented to us and ask all those questions. And I think it's important, obviously, for the rest of the elected members to have that opportunity as well. So it would be good to have those briefing sessions in the new year. The only sort of final point I just sort of maybe I would ask you, Darren, to sort of share with the rest of the committee is I asked this when we met in sort of informally previously, I think a couple of weeks back, and it helped me have a better understanding of what to sort of expect in terms of the additional crews. I just think that if you, I don't know if you recall what I'm talking about, but that the additional crews that are going to be coming, and you gave a number of the number of people who were expected to have as extra crews, and how they would be focusing on the sort of venue areas, but how the current staff would then therefore be more concentrated. Does that make sense? And I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's key in knowing how much extra resources.
Yeah. So this is about we are bringing in an extra 95 people. That's on top of the mobile HRCs, the graffiti crews that we've got at the moment. And when we then start to move them to, as we get closer into the games period, they will then start to focus on the game specific areas. That means that the existing teams, so the 86 that are at Redfern at the moment, based on the Redfern area, all of that time, the areas that will be then covered by the new teams, the smaller area will still be covered by the 86. So the additional crews will come on. They'll focus on particular areas around the games routes and the games venues as we get closer to those dates. But then the 86 that are remaining at Redfern will have a much smaller area, but the numbers will stay the same, and therefore their focus and their turnaround in those areas should be quicker. And it's the same at Lifford with the 82 that are based at Lifford, and the 87 at Perry Bar, and the 70 at the city centre. So as we then start to take our new crews onto the focused areas, the existing 300 odd staff that we've got, their area will be smaller, and therefore their turnaround will be quicker.
Thank you for that. I just thought it was important to clarify, because it helped me get a better understanding as to what that will actually mean for the rest of the city, and therefore the areas that are not directly linked with sort of venues. I think that's all the questions that I had, and apart from obviously the bits that you'd be able to go back and get for us. So the more information about the eating project from Botanical Gardens, the Love Your Street sort of list, and then the lists that for sort of the floral features and things that can be sort of elected members can possibly feed into where it might work in their sort of wards. And just sort of the final point I just probably want to reiterate is, the tackling the pieces of land that you've mentioned. And I think in January, sort of you said that the enforcement should commence around then. Would you be able to tell us what would be the best way for elected members to identify any pieces of land that they're aware of? You may already be, probably is already on the radar, because it gets, these are the areas we're talking about. Regularly do get fly tipped, but just, is there somewhere where a list is being, or where there's a list of them, and maybe elected members can send them through, and you can just double check that they're on the list, because obviously a lot of work goes into even identifying who owns them and all the rest of it. So I'm just keen on elected members being able to feed that in earlier, as opposed to come April say, well, this is a mess, and we've got the elections now, and we've got the games, and obviously it might just be useful for you to have that information now. So what would be the best way you'd suggest for elected members to send that to somebody?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I'd rather have the same location twice than not have the location. And we have got people looking, but elected members know their wards better than anybody else. We will, once we get the Commonwealth Games coordinator, that will be the route, that will be the person. But until then, if you've got anything before Christmas, send them to me, and then I'll make sure they're on our list. We've got a room identified at Montague Street Depot where we've got all the maps and all the locations and everything that we started to put into that room. So I until that post is filled, send them to me and I'll make sure that we've got that on the list.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you ever so much, Darren, for coming along to our scrutiny meeting and giving the presentation and answering all the questions. I think it's been really useful, and I know that elected members from this committee and other elected members will be keen to know how the city is getting ready for the games in relation to sort of street scene. So thank you again for coming along and doing your presentation.
Thank you.
We can, committee, we can then move on to the next sort of agenda item now, as this was the only presentation that we had on our agenda. Next, we've got item 5, which is just a discussion on the work programme. Just so that members are aware, we are waiting to get some sort of response back from the leader regarding attendance in the new year. And my suggestion would be that we invite both the leader of the council and possibly Craig Cooper to come back and speak to us about the city being ready for the games. And is open to suggestion, but we can perhaps invite the chief executive as well. So this is just to see whether members have got any comments or questions in relation to that. If not, then I'll go ahead and we'll just check diaries with the people that I've mentioned and get things in. And if any elected members have got any other ideas as to any of the directorates that we've already heard from, if you think it's important for us to have them back early in the new year, then please do send that through so we can get that arranged as well. Yes, Councillor.
Can I say something?
Yes,
yeah. Sure. It must be my nervous temperament, but the word that keeps on coming into my head for some obscure reason. So we're hearing what different elements of the service are doing, and I think it would be quite right to hear from the chair, trying to give us some kind of timetable.
Sorry, Councillor Straker-Wells, I don't know if it's just me, but for some reason I feel like every time you say crucial words in your sentence, it disappears, and I feel like I'm trying to fill in the gaps, and I don't know if anybody else is in the same position.
Is that better with the camera off? No.
Yeah, I can hear you, so I think maybe I should turn mine off as well. Sorry, it was just that you said that the word that keeps coming into your head.
Yeah, if you turn off his camera, it makes it better. Turn off your camera, it's better then.
Yeah. Okay, because you said the word that keeps coming to your head, and then I didn't hear the word. So.
Right. Yeah, sorry. The word that keeps on coming to my head is coordination, because we've heard different sections, different departments, what they're doing, and how they're going to be working together. And the working together bit is the bit that I'm most worried about. I mean, particularly here working with highways, transport, with street scene and so on. I mean, very exciting ideas, and particularly today, which I thought was really very exciting. I mean, the other thing that came into my head was whether, in fact, there's a way at some stage of getting a timetable for how all of this is going to be spilling out, because there must be somebody in the City Council who has how it works. Would that be Rob James? I don't know.
Sorry, I heard everything that you said, but just towards the end, a timetable with what on there, sorry, and then I might be able to find out who would be the person to ask?
Yeah, I suppose I'm really asking for the moon, and why not? A timetable, no, some kind of timetable of what specifically the council is concentrating on in terms of getting things done, and in terms of things happening. Darren's provided us with a bit of a timetable today. You know, when we can expect the floral tributes, when we can expect particular streets to be looked at. I was also, I'm not aware of a timetable coming from any of the other departments about what specifics they're concentrating on. And of course, the ultimate fear on my part, which I shouldn't really burden people with, is what happened with the mobile recycling unit, which is Kia comes along and digs up the street and blocks it off, and the mobile recycling unit is supposed to be down there at the same time. Sorry, I'm rambling.
No, I think I understand where you're coming from, and you're basically saying that the different, correct me if I'm wrong, but the different presentations that we've had so far from the different directorates, if those different bits of information can be put into one sort of calendar between now and the games, so that we can understand exactly how things tie in with each other, and what to sort of expect. And I suppose that will then mean that there are some eyes overseeing and ensuring that those things are happening as planned, if that makes sense. I think that's what you're asking. Okay, Kerry, I don't know if you're helpfully going to be able to answer this point, so I'll bring you in, but if not, then I'll carry on trying to respond to Councillor Straker-Wells as to how we can go about asking somebody for that, or trying to put something together. But Kerry, do you want to come in?
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say. Actually, Chair, it wasn't necessarily an answer, but a pledge to speak to the Commonwealth Games programme team, who are due to come to us in January to talk to us about getting set for the games, which will be the sort of the engagement programme for the 6 months leading up to the start of the games, but to ask them if they can give us some kind of overview of what the next 6 months are going to look like in terms of scheduled activity and how things do knit together, because I hopefully can assure Councillor Straker-Wells that is what they're doing, is knitting all of these things together in the background, and perhaps that's what we could ask back from them.
Yes, I think definitely, you know, as we're going to have them back in the new year, I'd say that we'll feed in what Councillor Straker-Wells has asked for, and sort of requested, and asked them to try and gather the rest of the information from as many of the different directorates that they can as possible, and try and put something together so that there is one timetable / document or presentation or something that tells us how all the different departments and people are sort of working together in their own specific work areas, if that makes sense. Yes, so I think the answer to your question, I don't know if it's an answer, but Councillor Straker-Wells will go back and request that from the team that's within the council.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay. And the only other thing I did want to sort of mention under this item was that, and obviously we all know we're not in the council house at the moment, as there are works and refurbishment and work taking place, and I know that when the games time is upon us, the council house will be sort of used to as the base for Team England, and to host dignitaries. And obviously that's really exciting that, you know, where we sort of normally go in to have our meetings will be used for something as exciting as this. I know that it's obviously all under sort of progress at the moment, and I was wondering what elected members thought of requesting for us to go and monitor that progress and see whether we could ask for a site visit of the work being undertaken, and also just to ask the questions around whether the plans are sort of on target in terms of making sure it's ready for when it needs to be handed to the organising committee and things like that. That was another thing that so I spoke to the deputy leader about already, and I just thought that this would be a nice idea for us to basically go in and see, or get somebody to update us on the council house itself and how that will tie in with being ready for the Commonwealth Games. Thoughts?
Yes. Yeah. And sorry, is that me making all that noise?
No, sorry, it might have been me. Carry on. Sorry, Councillor.
I'm getting feedback. Yes, well, not only to see what's going on, how far advanced it is, what has changed, but also to hear what they're going to actually be using the council house for, because I have no idea.
So yeah, so, exactly. So I think the things that, as far as I'm aware, or however little information I do have, is that I think that there may be plans to host sort of dignitaries and people like that at the council house, and then for it to be used as the base for Team England. Now I don't know what that means in reality in terms of what the rooms will be used for example, or you know, what activities may be taking place from the council house. But finding out about that would be, I think it would be a nice place for it to come to this committee. So if members think that it's something that they'd like to sort of work on, then I can go and have those conversations and see whether we can get something in the diary for the new year to get information on that. Is that, do members agree? Are we happy?
I think
with
that's a good idea. Good idea. I agree.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Unless there are any other sort of comments under the work programme, I'm happy to move on. If you've got any other ideas, we can drop me an email or send me a message, and we can see how we build this our work programme for the new year. The next date of the next meeting is the 12th of January. So that's just to note. And then any other urgent business? And if nobody comments, then I will take that as there isn't any. So in that case, I think I can bring this meeting to a close and just thank all the members in attendance, and also Darren for doing your presentation to us. I hope that everybody has a good sort of Christmas time and New Year period, and hopefully we'll see you back again in this committee in the new year. But if you're attending the Lord Mayor's dinner this evening, then I guess I'll see the elected members there if you're attending that. But otherwise, in terms of a committee format, see you in the new year.
Thanks, Chair.